And a big welcome to our new video from me and Mushroom. As you may know, Mushroom is my son and he's accompanying us again in our video today. So I decided to have different kinds of videos, like some subjects outside the context of practicing. To be said, things that may not really fit into the process of practicing, but rather are other crucial subjects that impact your musicianship. For today's topic, I chose repertoire. What you learn from today's video is what kind of book to choose, what is the proper method you want to follow. You know, a lot of people want to self-teach themselves, and you will find out whether that works for you or no. Because the perspective we have towards the books is very important. One thing to remember is the book itself does not necessarily indicate how much you improve, but rather it's the way that the book is taught to you or the way that the book is used. Because books are like tools, you know, they are not the target, they are not the purpose. And you use them in a variety of ways. I mean, like for example, etude books, you have to, you can use them with a variety of exercises. You can do a lot of things on one lesson outside whatever that the book is telling you. So it's very important how you actually use the book, and I'm going to give you an example about it. The best example of improper use of books and methods is hand-on plus Cherny, because these books are very popular in Middle East, in Asia, in the piano education. It's very usual that a piano student at least has been playing Cherny Opus 599, and a lot of people does some kind of scale, and also they use a lot of hand-on, especially the first practices in the beginning of the book. But then you end up with the student not being able to control their hands in a very long passage, not having proper balance. Not that I'm excluded from this group, because I still struggle a lot with controlling my balances on each note. Still I'm experimenting with how I should control my muscles and my breathing. Hand-on, for example, is an exercise book, if you already don't know. It contains different technique exercises for double notes, for scales, for arpeggios. One important thing about it is hand-on is a tool that your teacher should actually tell you and teach you how to properly use it. Like what kinds of styles and positions you have to have while doing these exercises. Because each exercise can be used for a variety of purposes. And the teacher should be able to demonstrate for you the alternative or variations of the practices you can do with one exercise. Also, you should constantly be checked by a mentor or an instructor to see whether your hand position is correct on the piano or no. Because, for example, you're doing scales, but you're not aware of the fact that your hands are weak on an instrument. I really don't know. We call this breaking of the fingers. And then you play all of the keys like this, you are not aware of it, and then you end up with an improper position that is really difficult to fix once you got used to it. And that itself can be dangerous. Imagine doing octaves in improper position. Then you're extending your hands in a wrong way, in a wrong position that is risking the health of your muscles. As I said, each exercise, for example, in the hand-on book, can be used for different purposes with a variety of practices on one exercise. And here are some of the purposes that we can use these exercises for. You could use it to strengthen your muscles, your fingers. You can use it to enhance the coordination between your right and left hand. Also, you can focus on having a smooth transition between the hand positions, like for example in the scale when you had finger changes and finger substitution. Also, some practices can be used to improve your sight reading. And more importantly, many of these exercises can be used as a tool to release the unnecessary tension that you have in your muscles by correcting your finger position constantly on whatever exercise that you're doing. Okay, so this was mostly about the technical aspect of it. You also have to have some kinds of etude. The best is that you have your technique exercises, then you want to apply those in your etude books. Because etudes employ not one single technique, but rather a mixture of different things. And again, one thing to watch out in doing any kinds of etude is to like constantly correcting your hand positions, because etudes are meant to work out your hands, right? Technically to give you a better ability to deal with different situations in the pieces. So there is no point in playing etudes with tension, with like extreme tensions, unnecessary movements, or wrong position, because you have to use them to correct something, to add something to your technique and your abilities. If you play them with like in a wrong position, then there is no point in doing any kinds of etude, right? Okay, as long as suggesting technique books and etude books, for technique, head-on is a good one, especially using head-on for scale exercises. For etude, you have a variety of options. Czerny is very popular, and it's very good. He has a lot of books, a lot of collections for like a huge collection for etudes. And okay, let me remind you that Czerny is not only Opus 599, 299, and 721. There are a lot of books that Czerny has written. Many of them are even more practical than like 599. For example, Czerny 299 itself, it actually contains like long pieces, long etudes, and different techniques, right? Whereas other books from Czerny, other opus, like for example, Opus 821, they have like one technique in a very small exercise that are meant to actually like teach you that specific technique, you know. I also saw something that was very interesting. Grammar etudes, if I'm like correctly pronouncing it. Grammar is also good, but it's like very jumping to different topics, to different techniques. Talking about standardized pieces or books with a variety of pieces, I actually listed something. I'm going to read it for you. What we want to do is to, like when we are choosing a book that contains like different pieces, the book should actually include these elements that I'm like listing for you. One of them is variety and technique. That's a must, you know, that should actually, the book should provide different kinds of techniques. Another factor is that the book should have different finger positions. You don't want to have a book that makes your hand fixed in one position forever, because you have finger changes throughout different pieces. Another thing to watch out, many books actually go based on having chords in left hand. All of their exercises go like having chords in left hand and melody line in right hand, because that is not the case always in the pieces in the classical repertoire, because you have like different things functioning together, and sometimes you have the melody in your left hand. You may want to reconsider choosing those books. Using different keys is also very important. One example I can give you is Czerny 599 or even Bigger. You know, these two books actually are meant to be teaching this basic level of piano playing. But most of the practices and exercises in these books are either in C major, G major, F major, sometimes including like 2 or 3 sharps or flats. But you want to experiment with different keys, with 4 sharps, with 5 sharps, with 4 flats, because you want to get used to the shape of these things that are appearing there, and then you want to learn the hand positions of different scales, different keys, you know. This factor that I want to talk about is very crucial. It goes on my nerves a lot. The book you choose must be musically rich. It should actually employ good harmonies, good forms, and it actually disappoints me to see people transcribing all these pieces and putting wrong harmony under the notes. Like, why? You know? And then you end up with a piece that doesn't have like a very interesting form. It's just, you know, it's important. I mean, not only you're learning technique on piano, but you're learning music, right? Another thing that disappoints me are like books that are poor in technique. They're good pieces, like you would love them, but then they don't add to you anything. It's just, from the beginning to the end of the book, there is not much of a technique that you're learning throughout playing that book. Talking about beginner books, one of the demanding questions was, what kind of book should I choose to self-teach myself? From now, I actually state my disagreement with any kind of self-teaching. I really discourage that kind of action. Even if you have a good ear and then you are aware that you're playing that note wrong, you may have improper position on the piano. And if you develop your piano playing with an incorrect position, with tension, with it's very important how you put your wrist on the piano. It's important how your body is reacting to the instrument. It's important how you use your fingers. And if you actually learn it in an incorrect way, then later it's really difficult to fix. It is possible to fix it, but why would you do that to yourself? Another thing I discourage in the beginning of piano learning is learning hands separately. Although it's a very usual method of teaching, a lot of people are taught to read the hands separately. Like, for example, Bayard does that. And I'm honestly very against it because I see these students getting into a level that they can play, but their sight reading is very poor. They always complain about sight reading. Whereas many methods that actually teach the student from the beginning to look for both of the lines and for an entire system, those students arrive at a point that they're very good in sight reading. They may be faster than the people who are in the same level, but they started hands separate. Another thing to watch out in a beginner book is the beginner book should actually start from the very basics. Although it actually depends on the character, on the personality of the student. Some students pick things very faster, that's okay. I'm the kind of person that is able to learn a collection of things at once. Some people better do it one by one, right? If I want to, for example, compare the John Thompson white book with the red book, I would really consider using the white book because the red book starts from a chord and all these notes going around, and you have to find it. It's a lot of material spoiling the student. I would start with things that are simpler, very basic. Like, for example, John Thompson, the white John Thompson starts from the do, the C itself, the note C, rather than having all of the notes and teaching okay, these are the notes on the staff, now play this. Again, watch out for the fixed position. Many of the book encourage you to have a fixed position on piano. Like, for example, you would get used to using your first finger always for middle C. Whereas some books, especially in the Russian method, they encourage you to have different finger positions. Like, they change the fingers all the time. That way you get used to following the fingerings on the staff. In conclusion, if we want to sum up the information I gave you, usually a good repertoire for piano learning consists of technique exercises plus etude plus piece if you're in intermediate to advanced level. If you're a beginner, you may want to consider using a book that has a variety of techniques that teaches you different keys, different structures, musical elements that are happening, harmonies, forms, and that's all I can say. And I state that I discourage self-teaching because of the risks that it can actually bring for the health of your hands. Thank you for watching this episode. I also want to thank Mushroom, and we are going to have a little bit discussion with Mushroom about different things that are happening. If you like this video, feel free to share it with anyone that may need it. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye.